What's going on, everybody? I want to do a video update on my experience doing a VO2 Max and a Resting Metabolic Rate test. And I haven't done a VO2 Max since college, since 2006, my senior year, and also I've never done an RMR test, so I was pretty excited. Luckily at my job, my current job, I get to work with this type of technology, and I'll be performing these for other people now that I've been trained on it. So why not go through the process of doing them? That way I can see where I'm currently at, especially because I started my contest prep, and although I'm like 3 weeks in, I wanted to, see where my baselines were going into it, and just to see what's going on. And at the end of my prep, I'm going to be trying to do this again. But with a VO2 Max, if you're not familiar with what that entails, basically you're trying to figure out, just trying to measure how much oxygen you're able to utilize before you hit your anaerobic threshold. So basically you're pushing your body either with a treadmill, either with a cycling bike, or a aerodyne bike. Basically you're putting a lot of effort into hitting a specific intensity so that you can yield some results with hitting your anaerobic threshold. So basically it stops after you've hit that point where you're not using oxygen. So anaerobic just means without air. So it takes at least 6 minutes to get that much data. So I lasted close to 7 minutes, and basically the idea is you're hooked up to, you got a face mask. It's covering your nose and your mouth because it's measuring how much oxygen and how much carbon dioxide are you inhaling and exhaling throughout the course of the test. So it's very uncomfortable. It's definitely not a fun test to take. So just because you're got this face mask on you, you got a heart rate monitor across your chest while you're performing this test. So I did it on an aerodyne bike, and then you have a tube that runs through the machine. So that's what measures your amount of oxygen and carbon dioxide. And the idea is you want to gradually start somebody off pretty light to moderate intensity, and then incrementally bump it up so that you hit the right amount of intensity to the point where they're hitting that anaerobic threshold. So I started off, we measured it by watts, and so he just kept giving me increments of where do I try to hit the watts so I can hit that proper intensity, and started off with 50-watt increments, and after about the third or fourth minute, that's when he started doing increments after every 30 seconds. And so I got up to 360, 370 watts, and then I was just like done and spent. And then you take 1 to 2 minutes to recuperate and recover, and then you print out the results. So the cool thing about the VO2 Max is it gives you ideas, like different zones of heart rates on where you should train. So if you want to increase your cardiovascular system, this is the heart rate that you should be, range that you should be targeting. If you're looking to be more, utilizing more fat, this is where you want to be at. If you want to do intervals, this is the heart rate that you should be targeting to help out with pushing up your lactic threshold. And so that's kind of cool to be able to see that. And so when I last took it back in 2006, I was like doing all sorts of running, more than lifting. So my measurement was actually in the 40s, and that's considered normal. But today, since I haven't done any type of cardiovascular work, even intervals, I haven't done any of that since April 2015, my last contest prep. And so it makes sense why my results kind of suck so bad. I basically have the lung capacity of a sloth. I scored a 24, and anything under 31 is considered really bad, like really low. So there's a lot of room for improvement in that respect, but it was just kind of cool to go through the process to see where I fall. And if I ended up in like the 40s, like 41 to 44, that's considered normal. So just to give you some idea of where I stand. So I didn't that was pretty bad. And then, so the other cool test that I did was the RMR, and that was a little bit more what I wanted to see, just because I knew my VO2 Max, was gonna suck. So I was really excited just to do the RMR test, because the RMR test is something that I have never done, and whenever I've tested for it, I mean, you can only do, you can use generic equations to figure it out, but it's really not that, precise. And granted, the RMR test still has its flaws, but it was cool to kind of just go through the process. And so with the RMR test, I've gotten tested on like an in-body just to see like what your basal metabolic rate is, and that just goes off muscle mass. So the highest I've ever seen mine was 1741 on an in-body 570 series, but that's just data that I don't really care about. So with the RMR test, it's a 10 to 20 minute test, and once again, it's kind of like, it's not that comfortable to do, but it's a lot more comfortable than the VO2 Max test. You're basically sitting down, relaxed, and you're breathing through a tube only, and you plug your nose. That way it measures, once again, your oxygen and your carbon dioxide. And so it really takes about 10 to 20 minutes, depending on how stable your data looks. And so I was right in the middle, like a little under 15 minutes before my test ended. And so you're just sitting there, you're breathing in and out, like nothing crazy. And then it has like all these different data points, like all these different graphs. And so basically the idea was, I got my results, and it was a lot more exciting than I thought it was going to be. So roughly I'm burning 2261 calories at rest. And when the exercise physiologist looked at my data, he's like, wow, that's actually really good for your age and gender. And then adding on top that, the results will show you, oh, this is how many calories, just for your daily function. This is an estimation. And so it added in another like 678 calories, and then it added another category. If I were to do like moderate intensity exercise for like 30 minutes a day, that's an additional 282 calories. So ultimately 3221 calories per day is how many calories I could be eating if I was doing, if that was like the exact measurements or exact way I was doing things. And so just to give you some idea of where I was currently at before I started prep, I was eating roughly about 3,400 calories, and I was maintaining weight pretty well with my current training programming and doing no cardio. So it was kind of cool to see like that affirmation, like, okay, like it's pretty close to what I was doing during my building phase. And like it really meshed up. And then it also had another graph that showed if you were utilizing fat as fuel, if you're using like a little bit of a combination of carbohydrates and fat as fuel, or you're mainly burning carbohydrates. And so when the exercise physiologist was showing me, he's like, okay, anything above a 1.0 is considered you're burning through carbohydrates. And so he's like, it's clear that you are burning through you're utilizing carbohydrates as a fuel source, like your main fuel source. And I was like, yep, that sounds about right, although it doesn't feel like it being in prep, but it just made sense. And he's like, you're burning, you know, you burn a lot of calories, you know, so looks like you're doing what you're supposed to. And so it's pretty cool to see like the numbers. I'll end up doing it again throughout the course of my prep just to see like what changes occur. I expect the VO2 max to improve just a little bit, hopefully, but we'll see. You know, being in a deficit, it should be very interesting. I just know that my resting heart rate and my blood pressure went extremely down when I was in prep. Like by the last like month and a half, my blood pressure was like in the 90s over 50s, and my resting heart rate was in the low 50s. It was pretty like scary. So like so it should be very interesting just to see, or I might just hit exhaustion really quickly on the VO2 max. We'll see. But I just wanted to give you guys an update on my experience on the VO2 max and RMR test if you weren't familiar with it. Other than that, thanks for checking in.